We're going to be doing a build inside of the brand new Fractal Design Pop 2 Vision RGB black case. We'll be the first to bring you a start to finish build. So without wasting any more time, let's get started. So we'll start off the build by removing the side panels that come off really easily. Then we'll just lay it on its side. The standard most motherboards are built across is ATX. Of course, there are eATX, micro ATX, and mini ATX. And this case can take them all. You can see here, ATX, micro ATX, and mini ATX. And next to them, they say AMI. That'll tell you what the standard is and what the screws in place for. So we can see here, 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 and here. They all have A's on there. That lets you know it's for ATX. And for this build, we're going to be using the MSI Mag Z890 Edge TI Wi-Fi. Beautiful looking board. Then you can also see these 9 holes that we pointed out earlier on the motherboard. Here, 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 here. There's one under here, 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 and here. So we can easily lay the board down here. Now you might get a little confused. They include in here 8 mounting screws for the motherboard, but there's 9 holes, right? Well, the one that's down here, just removing the heatsink for now, is a reverse standoff. So there's a screw sticking out. So you see on this one how there's a hole, but on this one it's solid because there's a piece of metal sticking out, and that actually helps you place your board as well. So placing the board back, now we can see that standoff, that reverse standoff, go right into the hole. And now we use one of those 8 of those in the screw holes. All right, now that we've placed all the screws in the holes, we're going to go ahead and push this down, and we're going to slide this out to release the CPU socket. So we'll open that up. Be very careful with these pins. If you touch them and bend them, you're going to void the warranty on your motherboard. We're utilizing here the 265KF processor. You'll notice on the processor, there are 2 little notches, one here and one right here. And then we're going to match up the notch here and the notch here with those 2 notches. So we'll just drop it right in place. And then we'll just wiggle it around and it's good. So now we'll drop this tray, making sure that these lips fall underneath this bar right here. So when we drop this, that piece of plastic is going to fall out, is going to jump out actually. So then again, we place this bar underneath this little piece right over here that locks the bar in place, making sure that that CPU doesn't go anywhere. Make sure to save this in the motherboard box just in case you need to put this back. And then since we're here, we're going to install the RAM. To install the RAM properly, we're going to be installing it in DIMM B2 and DIMM A2. You'll also notice the legend right over here that shows you the same. So we're going to go ahead, open this up. Then we're going to slide the RAM on the corner right over here. Since there isn't a place here to open it, that means you slide the RAM right in there. And then you'll know if you installed it wrong if the memory seesaws. Now, what I mean by that is you'll notice there's a notch right over here. Then there's a notch right over here. The way we installed it, those 2 notches don't align. So the memory is going to seesaw. But if we spin it around and we do the same thing, now the memory locked in place, you saw this snap up, and I'll do it again right over here. Slide it in this way, and then locking the RAM in place. You'll notice there is one here and one here that are open. And generally it's okay to leave them open, but we have the Corsair Vengeance Light Kit. So what we can do, these are blank DIMMs. There's no memory on these. So what we can do is just open these up and we'll slide in 2 more sticks. Again, these are blank, but it's just to make it look a little bit nicer. And they all light up as well, and I'll show you that on the next video. Now that we've installed the CPU and the RAM, now we're going to install the M.2 SSD. Then before you install the M.2, we need to remove the film that's on there now. Just peel that off. And then we'll go ahead and slide in that M.2 SSD. Then we'll take the heatsink, remove that film as well. We're going to line up these 2 V's with these 2 pegs right over here. Okay, that's in place here. So we should be able to push that down, locking the M.2 in place. Now to install the second M.2, we'll just remove this heatsink. And we installed the M.2 on this because it's directly tied to the CPU, so it's going to be the fastest slot, being the Gen 5 M.2 slot. Up to 24 PCIe lanes, we're still able to use the second M.2 slot, the 2.2, that's connected to the CPU, and still have our graphics card as by 16, making sure we hide all these gold pins so it's fully inserted. Now, as we push this down, you notice there's a piece of plastic here. We need to push this out, and then now we slide this back in, and that plastic covers that M.2. And now we'll remove the film from the very first M.2 thermal pad. In the same way, we'll line up these 2 V's right here with these 2 pegs. And this one's a little bit easier because it spells out mag if it's correct. And then push it down to lock them in place right over here. So now we've just installed the CPU, 32 gigs of DDR5, 6000 megahertz, as well as 2 lighting kits and 2 M.2 SSDs. Since we're going to be placing the radiator right up here, I'm going to go ahead and place the 2 8-pin CPU EPS power connections right up here, because if not, they're going to be blocked later on. So I'm just going to connect that, and this will be either a straight 8-pin for CPU power, not PCIe, or 2 4+4 join. And you only need 2 if either you're overclocking or your CPU requires that much power. This one doesn't, but I like to have both just because. So I'll just connect that right in here. And right here as well. It's perfectly safe to use 2. It's also perfectly safe to use only 1 if your CPU doesn't require that much power. And because I'm up here already, I'm going to go ahead and install the ATX 24 pin as well. And we can either slide it in through the grommets right over here, but to make it a little bit more hidden, now, generally, I build with the motherboard outside of the case at first so that I can install the CPU, the RAM, the M.2, and the radiator all outside so that I can bring it in, because the backplate is generally very difficult to get to. But on this case, removing these 2 screws, and this plate reveals everything right over here. Now, this plate is used to install either 3 SSDs or 1 3.5-inch drive sideways and a single SSD. And I'll be installing an SSD here in a second, just so that you know how it is for your build at home. Not that I will necessarily be using it. So let me just pull all these in to make that look a little bit nicer on the other end. I might need to do that a little bit later on. And let me pull the CPU ones through. 1 second. Since this will be covered by the radiator, I'm not too worried about these. If they would be a little bit more out in the open, I'd probably slide them underneath here. but I think it'll be covered here. We'll find out soon enough. So then this will connect into the power supply. So now's as good a time as any to install the power supply as well. We'll be using the Corsair RM1000X, and we'll be using 4 of these larger screws. So to place everything where it needs to be, we're going to grab the power supply, and this has it on its side to make things so much easier. But what I'm going to do is, this is for the 24 pin. So I'm going to install that real quick. Just trying to make it look nice. And then we need these 2 for the CPU. So we'll see here, PCIe CPU. We have 5 additional ports here, and actually 2 over here as well. So I'm going to install these 2 CPUs right here. Then this would be for the graphics card. Since we're using a 5070 that has a 12 volt 2x6 connection. And then also SATA power for the SSD we're installing. I'll plug that into the SATA PATA connections. And we have plenty more if we need them, but this is great that Corsair lays it out all on the side rather than over here where it's incredibly hard to reach when you're inside of a case already. And this power supply, and this case I should say, makes things so much easier because now we slide this right over here. So the issue here is this piece of metal right over here is hitting this right over here. If this wasn't here or this wasn't here, then it'll work fine. But this is not an oversight on Fractal. It's just the way that Corsair has built this particular power supply, which works great on any other case except this one. Generally, they're all right over here. This piece of metal here. And generally the power supply would go here, but thankfully Fractal thought ahead and they have another spot for the power supply right over here. I'm gonna go ahead and put the rear plate for the liquid cooling unit here first, and then we'll come back to the power supply. And we're going to be using the Fractal Lumen S36 RGB liquid cooling unit. So we'll start off with the Intel backplate. And then for this, the 1851 socket, this right through here, at the very end, not inside, outside. And then we're going to drop this right through here. And you're going to need to push it through all the way. So I'll do the same for all 4. One sec. All 4 are together. And because this case offers so much room, I can actually put my hand through here. And since I'm going through the back of the case, I can just pop them through here and it goes all the way through here. Now I'm going to grab these caps and then slide them through here, and that keeps everything in place. Now I'm going to be placing the radiator on the other side of the case, and I'm going to be dropping the cold plate right on top of the CPU, making sure that the thermal paste, of course, hasn't been touched. It comes pre-applied. You can use your own, but I'd say use what they have first. If you feel like it's not good, then you can always take it off and repaste it. So I'm going to attach the cable that they provide for the RGB lighting. Connect that there. And then I'm just going to have it off to the side. And then I'm going to slide that into place, making sure I don't push anything through, and then it's good there. So now I'm going to grab these screws. I'm not going to push it all the way through, just enough to have some threading to latch onto. And I'm going to repeat the process diagonally first. I'm actually going to have to put my hand there to push it through a little bit more. Okay, now on this last one, I'm going to push it in and screw it in all the way, diagonally, all the way. And since this is an ARGB connection, we're gonna go ahead and slide it right through here to kind of hide it, and then slide it right through here. And I'll make it look pretty a little bit later on, but just setting a foundation there. And very important, since I'm about to put the radiator at the top, I'm gonna go ahead and put these screws back in so I don't forget them and they become impossible later. For the radiator, since we are going to be placing it like this with the hoses right over here, I'm going to be placing the fans right over here, and the main cable is going to come from over here along the tubes. It also has this cable right over here, controls the pump. So I'm going to move this cable, even though we're not at the cabling portion just yet, right over here. So that way it's more hidden. And I'm going to take this time to install the fans. These are standard fans, so this is going to be blowing air through here, which will be going out through the top. So sucking warm air from inside the case out. Okay, so the cable will be connected right through here. And this cable goes directly to the fan header. These go to a separate fan header. Normally you could connect all these cables into that, but you want the pump to get its own power from the header and then these to get their own power from a separate header. So now what we're going to do is we're going to grab these screws, and since it's going to be here, I'm going to align this right over here. And thread it. And I'm gonna do the same for all the other 3 fans. So one sec, I'll be right back. Okay, so I did all these. The cables come out of here, so I twisted it through here, did the same here. This one I kept it out through here. That way we could feed it right through here and not have to worry about the cabling so much. So now what we need to do is join this one to this one to this one. Same with the ARGB. I've loosened all the cables. So now we're going to do the PWM cables. We want it to end in this one here. So we're going to connect this into here. And then on this end, the very first one, same thing, this into here so that this is the end. And now for ARGB, we'll do the same thing. We want to end up with this cable. This is what connects to the motherboard. So we'll connect that one into this. And this one into this. So that we end up with this one. This is what we want to connect to the motherboard. So now let's just go ahead and screw this in. So here we're just going to remove this. And now we're going to be using these screws that come with the Lumen S36. And we're just going to grab the radiator and line it up so that we can get at least one screw hole in for right now. Not 100%. And then we'll come on the far end. We'll do a diagonal again, just to make sure we can fit all of the screws. Okay, so there's 12 screws in total. So give me one sec while I screw the rest in. And now that they're all done, now we screw them in all 100%. Okay, so now we have everything put together other than the graphics card. The graphics card will be one of the hardest ones to make everything look pretty because all the cables are in the back while the card is out in the front. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to place the power supply here, then place the SSD right up here, and then we'll get into the cabling portion. And we're going to be putting it along the top because of that little bar. And actually, before we put that SSD in its spot, we need to connect some of these cables, because if not, then they're going to become impossible to connect. So this is HD audio, which usually goes right over here on the flip side of the board. So I'll slide that right in there. This is going to be power for all these fans and everything. So I will keep it on the side. This is SATA power. This will be USB 3.0. And let's see where it is on this case, on this motherboard. Okay, on this motherboard, it's right here. So I'm going to slide it through. Right over here. I'm gonna push it all the way through just for right now, or that much at least. Okay, then we have a bunch of PWM fans hooked up to one single cable, making it easy. So I'm going to slide it right down here as well, and we'll get to it in one sec. I like that they make that easy. And then they have a power switch, which I'm a little surprised that they don't have the universal connector, but it's still not really a standard. So I'm going to slide it right over here. Then I'm going to have to slide this RGB connection or ARGB connection to the inside because this is really a short cable. I'm surprised they didn't make it a little bit longer, but let's see what I can find out. So what I'm going to try to do is get all these cables from these fans that are ARGB and get that connected. So I'll get to that in a sec. So let me connect this power switch. So for this one, the power switch on this particular motherboard, it's going to be these top two towards the right next to this open space. Just connect it right up there. And there is no polarity on that, so it doesn't matter negative or positive. That'll just work as the switch. And thankfully, it's just one cable. And for those two cables that we slid under, this is a fan header. So we'll connect it to one of these fans here. Okay, connected. And then this is the HD audio. We'll connect that. Here is that missing pin. We'll connect that right here. So that is connected, front panel audio, and then the fans. And we also have the power button. We still have all these other fans to worry about. So I know it can be very daunting with all these cables around, trying to move them out of your way. So now we're going to worry about the USB 3.0 header, and that'll be connected right here. If you notice, there is a little notch right over here that's going to line up with this notch right here. So we're going to connect it just like this. Okay. And now we'll just slide the excess cable right through here easily. And we have all this mess of cables, but let's sort them out real quick so we can connect them nice and neatly. Okay, so this is the ARGB for the liquid cooling unit, and this is the PWM, the fan headers. This is the ARGB for the other fans, and then we have the PWM header right here for the pump. So this connection right up here, the very top one, the white one, that's for the pump. So the pump PWM cable right over here, that is going to go connected right into there, and we'll make it look pretty in a second. And then what we'll do so that we can hide all the other cables, this connection right here, right below the pump, we'll connect the liquid cooling PWM connection. We'll make it look nice. Now, wouldn't you know it that all the ARGB connections are along the bottom of the motherboard. So I should be able to connect these just fine around the rear of the board coming up through here. But that other loose connection I have up there, I'm going to need an extension cable. So they had actually plenty of slack, but still it only brought it to around here. So I just kind of reversed all the cabling so that it would come out to what I wanted it to. So all connected right into here, coming down to here. So now I'm going to connect it down here somewhere. And this is going to be challenging to make it look nice. Not really. I think it'll be relatively easy. Connecting into there. So we could see that connection right there. And then we have this one that I need to wrap around the back. So one sec. All right, so I brought all my PWM and ARGB cables through here. Let me sort this a little bit and I'll be right back. I was able to sort through all these cables. This is the cable coming from the pump. And so what we can do is these are the ARGBs coming from the fans. So I'm going to connect this from the pump. Since it's only lighting, it's not anything else electrical on the pump. And I am going to feed it down through the rear of underneath all of these power cables. so many, and we'll sort them in a second. I feel like I have a good grasp on them. So what we don't want to do is disconnect any of these along the way. So I think we're good. And then we can feed this ARGB connection right through here. I'm gonna grab it through the front and bring it around here. So I have to disconnect this ARGB cable because it's longer. So I'm feeding it, I'm connecting this guy. ARGB has to be the worst connection ever. So simple, 3 pins, but they're the most difficult pins to connect. So that's connected there. I'm going to connect this one right over here since we have a lot of give on that cable. Whew. Okay, now we have one more ARGB connection or header if we needed it. Everything's looking clean. I think we have everything connected down here. So we have all these fans and the bottom fans connected. Perfect. Then we need to connect the SATA power, which we do have the cable there, but let me sort through all of these real quick, make it look nice, and I'll be right back. So then I am going to connect the SATA power. So L to L. All right, connected. And then I'm just gonna drop it down here. All right, so then for the back plate, again, we could put 1, 2, 3 SSDs or one 3.5-inch mechanical drive and then one SSD here. I'm gonna place it right in the center and we'll use these mounting screws. Just line them up right back here. All right, so just like that. Now I'm going to slide it. I was gonna leave all of these to the very end, but I can't with these. I don't truly care how these look since they're gonna be hidden. Then I'll connect the SATA power right here. Now we just need the SATA data cable, which they're going to come connected from here. So I'm going to just pop one in right here. And it's funny how they added this grommet, but I'm trying my hardest to avoid to use it. All right, so the cable is coming through right here and it connects, thankfully, at an angle. So that just makes it a little bit sexier there to hide all these cables. Now for the really cool part about this graphics card, unlike any other one that I've seen, we have to remove this to expose the connection for the power, the 12 volt 6 pin or 2x6 pin. So we put it right over here. We'll connect it right here. Hear it click, little teeny tiny click. And now we'll insert the card. Actually, I forgot to remove these guys right over here. So one sec. I'm not sure. I think it's the second and the third. These are nice and thick. All right, so then we'll install the card. Just sliding it right in there and just pushing it. All right, card is installed. Now let's go ahead and screw these in just to make sure the card doesn't go anywhere. And then we'll place this back up here, just closing everything. And it's not blocking any of the ports, at least this one, maybe a tiny bit, but I don't think so. We'll find out soon enough. So we may need to pull on this cable a little bit. One sec. Oof. And then we could drop it like that. And I gotta clean it up some. It's got my grubby fingerprints along the front. And I don't recommend using the filter along the top because you'll be filtering air going out, and who cares about the air going out? You want as much heat as possible to go out, not to get trapped inside of a filter that'll just get hotter. So I've walked you through a full build inside of Fractal Design's brand new POP2 Vision case. There were a few complications with the power supply, not really a fault of Fractal or even Corsair, just a different type of power supply, but no matter what, Fractal's design was able to take care of it. Fractal's design. That wasn't by design. Regardless of that, I hope you liked the way the build turned out. I modified the cabling just a little tiny bit. You'll notice more around the graphics card side. You don't see that little tiny bulge sticking out. And then I had some liberties as well back here, but for the most part, it's the same as we saw it. That's not it, there's more. You'll find up here my review, my full review of the POP2 Vision case, what I loved, what I hated about it, and then we do some thermal testing and some acoustic testing as well to see if it stands up to the potential build quality. And then below that, you'll find the unboxing. That way you know exactly everything you get, a little more than just the build itself. Anyway, this is your friend Iggy with ThisBytesForYou doing a full build in Fractal Design's newest POP2 Vision case. Iggy with ThisBytesForYou out. See you guys.